Alright everybody, welcome to a quick and dirty video on powder coating bullets the easy way. So, as you can see, I've got quite a lot of crap on my bench right now, but it's workable. So, first off, the humidity's a bit high. I don't have every powder is not working quite right. My yellows, as you can see over here, are coming out not the best. I'm getting a coat, but it's a little mottled. Black, working a bit better. Good enough to shoot. It's not super pretty, but it'll work. These are for 44 mag. So, I got two different types of bullets here I'm working on right now. I got some 158 grain round nose flat points for 357 Magnum carbine, and I got some 124 grain truncated cone for my 9mm. So, I got one powder here in particular that no matter what the conditions, this powder works. It's kind of a glossy purple. It came from powder365.ca and so far works great. So, I'm going to show you my method. It's not complicated. It's way easier than a lot of people make it sound. But basically, class 5 recyclable. I picked these ones up from Crappy Tire. I think I got a 5-pack for like $3. Nothing special about them. Margarine tubs work pretty well as well. And if you want to get real anal, you can clean it out between batches, but I generally never do unless I'm switching from one radical color to the next. And in that case, usually I'll use multiple containers. So, my method, pretty simple. Put on a nitrile glove. That'll keep your oil on your fingers from contaminating your bullets. Grab a handful. Toss them in. Don't go too overkill. You'll regret it if you put too many in and it doesn't quite work out all that well. Some people will measure it in, but I never really bother. I just pour in a healthy portion. Stick your lid on. Make sure she's sealed nice and tight. And start shaking. Sometimes the powder will sit in the middle and the bullets will actually go around it. So you can always turn her on her side. Now some people will use airsoft BBs, and I have used them before. I will use them especially with larger bullets like 450 grain for 45-70. But as you can see in this case, I don't need any. I've got a really good coat. So now what I do, I take my nitrile glove, dip it in some of the powder, make sure I got some on my fingers, and then I start picking them up and putting them on the tray. Now this is the part where it gets real boring if you want to watch the whole thing, and I highly doubt you do. Now, some people will do a few different things. You can use forceps. This is what I used to do, was use forceps for this. However, I found it a little bit fiddly. It did in the end make a bit of a superior bullet, but you're also kind of wasting a lot of time. It takes a long time. Nobody wants to spend a lot of time doing this. You'd rather be out shooting, rather than spending hours and hours and hours coating 1,000 bullets at a time. So I much prefer to use my fingers. I find it's just a way faster method. So use whatever tickles your fancy. Now some people will dump these into a wire mesh strainer, shake off all the extra powder, and then just dump them on the tray. And that's fine too, and I've done that. It's quick, it's easy, and it works. But you do get a little bit of flow when the bullets are cooking, and I found that a lot of mine were a little bit lopsided on the coating. So I mean, nothing serious. If you run them through a sizer after you've coated them, then they will work perfectly fine. But I'm a little picky about it. I like mine to be as round and even as possible, so I like to lay them on their base. Do whatever tickles your fancy, it's all going to work. Now you can get real wild with the colors here too. Lots of people will tell you don't mix your colors, but you know what? Sometimes it works. I've got blue, I've got red, I've got this purple, I've got a translucent pink, I have Can-Am green, which is really more of a yellow, and from Prismatic Powder Coatings, I currently have a glossy black. This, however, is one of my favorite colors, this purple. I do not know exactly what the name on this powder is. I ordered it with a friend. He has the original packaging and I just took half a pound. However, I do know that it came from Powder 365. I'll show you some of the other colors I do have here. Glossy black, which is going to end up like this guy here. This is the Can-Am yellow. That's what happens if you mix red and yellow and black together. Not terribly pretty. Here's some of the 9s that I've already coated. That's what happens if you mix black and yellow. Actually, not too bad. The black stuck better than the yellow did, so it basically has a black base coat with a little bit of what looks now like a green stuck on the top. And farther over here, I have, these are the two colors that I originally started with. Tractor Red and Tool Blue from Powder 365. Now you mix them together, you end up with purple. So it does work. Lots of different color combinations you can make. Get as creative with it as you want. If I've mixed powders rather than dump unused powder back into the jar to contaminate the whole jar, I will put them all in this little jar here. You can see there's a few airsoft BBs kicking around in there. And if you are going to use the BBs, most guys do recommend the black ones. I've used a couple different ones, never found much of a difference using them. As far as generating static, I don't know whether they do or not, but what they do is work as a buffer between big heavy bullets. So if you're casting those 450 grain bullets like this for a 45-70, those are a big heavy bullet. When they're bouncing around on that tray, they will beat the hell out of each other and strip the coating off each other. So you add in airsoft BBs and you just throw in, half a handful of these at a time, maybe 12, 15 bullets. You'll coat them and they'll come out looking pretty good. I also prefer to size my bullets before I powder coat them. It's kind of an extra quality control method. And then generally, depending on the usage, I will size them after powder coating as well. So these particular ones use 9mm here. These ones just came out of the oven. Still a little bit warm, but that's the glossy purple. And as you can see, it gives a pretty good coat. There's one little thin spot there, but it is coated, but it's thin. You'll notice different colors on the base because I've used the aluminum foil here a few times. And that's non-stick aluminum foil, of course. So yeah. Verify temperature settings in your oven. I've had this one sitting on for a little while, so it is warm. It's up to temperature. So once you get all your bullets placed on your tray, open her up, toss her in. I set my timer generally for, depending on the bullet type, with 9mm, I'm going to set it for probably about 16 minutes. And that'll generally give me a really good bake. And I've never had any that have failed the smash test yet. So I won't do one of those currently because we just put my son to bed and I don't feel like waking up the whole household here. So, but yeah. Anyways, that's really about all there is to it. Just experiment, find out what works for you. Every powder is different. My basic blue will generally coat better than the red, but I do find that the red does still give me a good coat. Some of the lighter colors, like the yellows, you need to get a thicker coat, a better coat, in order for it to look consistent. Any powder that is translucent at all will generally give you a poor looking coat when you're doing this method. It might still be coated, but it doesn't necessarily look even. So I much prefer the darker colors, and I seem to generally have better luck with the glossier colors. I don't know if it's an additive in the powder, if it's something going off the chemistry, or what. So far I've only had one powder that was a total and complete failure, and that was a powder from Prismatic Powders. Nothing wrong with them, they make great powders, but they make a lot of 2 and 3 part powders where you have to have base coats, top coats, clear coats, so on and so forth. And I chose a gold metallic, and that was a top coat meant to go over a base coat of chrome. And when I tried to apply the gold color, it was a total flop. I had basically zero adherence. It didn't stick at all. Now I don't know if that was because I didn't do a base coat, or if there was some way that the gold, or whatever mineral it was that they're adding to it to get the gold, was causing it to ground out. But it was absolutely zero adherence. So you'll notice that on my mason jar here I do have non-stick aluminum foil as a seal underneath the seal, and that's because the powder, if it reacts with the rubber gasket, will quite frequently just seal the whole thing shut, so you have to pry it off. So now I got them on the tray. Now normally I'd have a lot more on here, probably close to 300 or so.